So one of the things I always look forward to as a golf coach is working on the start of the downswing. So I know that once I get the backswing in play with a student and get the basics of posture and alignment sorted, working on the start of the downswing always makes such a big difference to that golfer's ability to obviously hit the golf ball just so much better. And as a coach, you can kind of see with somebody when they're swinging that you could, I could improve this and that a little bit, and that would help them get more distance. But obviously that golfer can't really see that because they've never experienced it. So it's always a very exciting time when it comes to working on the start of the downswing for myself, which is exactly what I wanted to do and share it with you guys today. So there's two things that we need to try and focus on. From the face-on perspective, we're going to be focusing on like a low point line, which is basically a line that would be located over the lead ankle, and we need to make sure that when we hit the golf ball, the club, hands, hip and shoulder are pretty much in line with that. And I say pretty much because the upper body could be slightly back, but the hands and the hip need to definitely be in line with that ankle. And also we'll focus on the side-on perspective, which is where we need to make sure that as we start this downswing, we have this ability to stay in posture, okay, and get rid of this kind of common problem where we sort of stand up into the start of the downswing, because that is just obviously something that we really don't want to be doing. So what we need to do is we need to understand that the pure simplicity of what's happening with regards to the rotation, if I put my hands across the lower part of my stomach here, is that we go into posture, which basically means the pelvis becomes slightly downward facing. And then in the backswing, as we rotate, what happens is that I trigger a nice rotational motion and my pelvis again continues to stay downward facing. Now from your perspective, you see, when my pelvis continues to rotate, when you're looking at my golf swing from like a two-dimensional perspective, obviously the right side of my hip kind of goes missing due to the rotation, which is why it kind of very much looks like we move towards that left side. Now in the backswing, I'm very happy with your weight distribution being 50-50, but as we start the downswing, we're going to shift the weight towards the left as we keep the pelvis downward facing. But then this is the key thing that I want to focus on now. You see, as I go into this through swing, again, I'm going, pelvis points down to the ground, it continues to point down to the ground, and then see here, the way it continues to point down to the ground, which basically means it's not this type of motion. Now, if you can keep that pelvis pointing down to the ground, particularly in the through swing, okay, so particularly like in this sort of late downswing impact area, if we can keep that pelvis pointing down to the floor, what it will do is it will keep our upper body moving over our lead leg. Now, let me just put this into perspective. The thing that we're really focusing on is this low point line first and foremost. So if I'm somebody who has a tendency where instead of keeping the pelvis moving down and around, the upper body kind of, or the lower body starts shooting over this way, can you see the way that affects my upper body? But if I focus on my pelvis pointing down and around more this way, see the way it drags my upper body with it. And that's because from a sort of biomechanical perspective, your upper body will always try and align itself over your lower body to reduce sort of risk and injury. So if you can really understand that you are trying to move this pelvis down and around in this through swing position, it's going to help you out an absolute ton. Now, it'll help you out because it will keep you over the golf ball quite nicely, okay, like so. But what it will also do is it will help you shift the weight pressure, and obviously, as I just mentioned, the big thing that it's going to do is it is going to help you get that weight on towards that lead side, coming in towards this impact region, which is going to be like a massive movement. Now, the thing that you need to do is we also need to navigate this ability of staying in posture. So like I said, by focusing on keeping the pelvis moving down and around, it moves the upper body in line with the lower body, which means that we're going to be in line at that impact position. However, we still need to make sure that as we're coming in towards this downswing, we also have the ability to stay over the golf ball. So what we need to do this is symmetry. What I mean by symmetry is I'm going to place this alignment stick pretty much just above my belt line, okay, because I'm going to push it relatively firm in towards my lower stomach region, and then I'm going to place my arms to try and keep it nice and steady, so my arms are pretty straight. Now, what you guys just need to focus on is where the alignment stick itself is pointing. And what I do with some of my students is we actually use a laser pen, but sometimes it's difficult to see the laser pen in this type of light, so that's why I'm going to use the alignment stick. Now, because the information that we've said so far is I just said to you guys, look, we want to concentrate on keeping this pelvis pointing down and around because it moves the upper body over. However, what happens with a lot of amateur golfers is they tend to spin out, which basically means as they start the downswing, the right hip fires forward. And we don't want that, right? So what we need to do is we know that we need to keep the pelvis pointing down in the backswing, and down in the through swing. But as I just mentioned, we need symmetry. So if you watch me do this exercise now, so I'll hold this pretty firm in my stomach. So I turn like so, and then watch me as I start the downswing. See the way I'm creating a very symmetrical shape with my alignment stick. Okay, so I'm swinging back, my weight is 50-50. I move it progressively more onto the lead side. But can you see the way this shape? Now what I'm saying is, if I'm the kind of golfer who fires the right hip forward, you can see the way my pelvis still points down, but the problem is I'm losing the symmetry. So as I come, instead of following that same sort of curved shape back, I follow it like this. And it's a real simple drill, okay? Because if you can just, this is the thing, my online students are really starting to get this, but you need to do the drills to give your body the feeling, okay? So the idea of doing these types of exercises and looking at the symmetries, you do it nice and slowly in isolation, meaning you just focus on the lower body move, as I'm demonstrating here, and then you'll start to feel the muscles that are activated and the sort of orientation of your body when you're doing it. Because like I say, if we can keep the pelvis downward facing and then move it with an element of symmetry from side to side, as opposed to sort of swinging it back and then, you know, having some sort of motion like this, or moving it back and then what that is massively going to do is that's going to give you this ability to stay over the golf ball. Okay, so from this perspective, that means sort of swing back and stay over the golf ball. What it's also going to do is, by keeping that pelvis downward facing, see what it's going to do. It's going to keep me over the golf ball like so. And if you can work on those couple of drills, like I do with students that come to visit, we'll do both of those sort of exercises to give that golfer a feel, and then all of a sudden you are going to completely change how you hit the golf ball, particularly if you are somebody who has spent so much time kind of doing something like that, where the contact is a little bit thin and you're a little bit stuck, and then all of a sudden you can start getting a feeling for rotating better through the golf ball. You're going to start to compress it, you're going to hit it miles better. So we need to make sure that we're getting it done. See you guys again really soon.